folks, welcome back to the kitchen for video number 3. I've got wood. This is Ash. Ash wants to be the very best, like no one ever was. Complete tangent. Sidebar. 90s kid digression, if you will. Was Ash always meant to fail in his quest at Pokemon mastery? Ash is called Ash, which is a tree. All the other Pokemon professors are also named after trees. Was that meant to be a subtle hint that should he break free of the Groundhog Day loop that has kept him and Pikachu trapped as an 11-year-old these past 30 years, the forces of nominative determinism will make him abandon his quest for Pokemon mastery and settle for the lucrative field of tenured Pokemon professorhood? It has nothing to do with this video, just something that's been keeping me awake at night. Thought I'd share. This video, I'm going to be making the body of my Sawdust guitar. I'm hoping this is going to be relatively straightforward. Sure, while this is a more radical design than what I'm used to making, this is still, what, my 5th custom body? I mostly know what I'm doing.
Mostly.
Okay, before we get onto the fun process of making Sawdust, I'm going to talk a bit about some kind of boring stuff. Apart from the uniqueness of the Star Destroyer inspired looks, the Imperator is going to be a relatively plain guitar, especially by some of the standards set by my GGBO competitors. This is not a boutique build. I am not a boutique person. Tone woods have no hold over me. Pretty woods are pretty, but they're also expensive. I got into Lufury because I couldn't afford to buy the guitars I wanted, so I figured I'd just start building them. I'm not disparaging it. If you want to build, say, a 59 Les Paul replica out of flamed purple heart with a multi-laminate spalted sycamore neck and, I don't know, epoxy river inlay frets, then yeah, sure, go for it. If someone wants to commission me to build a boutique guitar, hell yeah, I'll go for that. The money's good enough. It's really not for me. I build with what I can get. Yeah, that's the main reason I'm using ash. Out of all the woods available to me at my local wood shop, ash really is the wood that's most suited to making guitar bodies. The first step is going to be to cut this plank down to two 46cm lengths and then glue them together. Before I do that, let's address the elephant in the room. Hi. Despite my best efforts, this plank has cupped and warped quite a bit. Not to mention stress fractures and a couple of interesting knot holes. I'm going to have to do a fair amount of shaping to this plank to turn it into a Star Destroyer anyway. I hope that I will be able to trim all these imperfections out. Now, in accordance with YouTube law, the very moment I start sawing into this plank, I'm doing woodwork. Therefore, contractually, copyright-free acoustic guitar music will begin playing. See? Infuriating. I think I found a loophole. If I'm right, all I have to do is plug this into my camera, like so, and then plug my amp in, set it to aluminum, and then... Success! Okay, here we go. Right, the next thing I'm going to do is glue the two planks together. Whenever I watch other people's builds in this contest, I see folks break out every clamp imaginable to make sure that their glue joints don't slip. There's nothing wrong with that, but personally I prefer using dowels to keep the two halves aligned during the glue up. That way I can get away with only really using the two clamps that I've got. Sure, PVA glues aren't gap filling, but they're strong enough to hold wood together with small gaps. Up to about 0.5 millimeter in size. For my friends in the United States of Freedom units, that's 0.06 of a barleycorn, or 0.000025 of a furlong. I will get the dowels set up with another 3D printed template in mind, and then glue the halves together with the Type 1 2. I've got the dowel pins glued in. Let's apply some glue. Oh bollocks, I forgot about that. Last time I used this clamp, the ratcheting mechanism in there kind of broke, It only really gives it maximum pressure if I put an extra clamp on the clamp to hold both halves together. And it's not perfect, there is a little bit of a lip between the two, but that was to be expected. I'm going to leave this to glue up overnight. It's glued and it's solid. I'm going to give this a quick once over and flatten all these surfaces, hopefully get this twist out of it. No guarantees there. So I found out something interesting about my camera. If you're recording something and the battery dies, the file that creates corrupts the SD card. So, one format later, and we're back at it again. Right, when the battery went, I was planing down the black. I've taken a fair bit of the twist out of it, but not all. If this was fine woodworking, sure, I would chase that down entirely until we have a nice flat level surface, but I'm not making a cabinet here, I'm making a guitar body, and it doesn't really need to have the twist chased out of it entirely. My purpose is, this amount of wobble, this is fine. It's going to get worked out anyway, so I can live with it. With the help of this finely crafted template, I'm going to draw out the first outline onto the body blank itself. This is the top-down projection of the Sawdust destroyer shape. I'm going to be trimming down this body quite a bit. The body is going to end around about this line here. This is going to be quite a short guitar, but with an extended baritone scale. Now I've got the rough outline figured out, I am going to break out my saw. When you are using a Japanese saw with a crosscut and a rip cut tooth pattern on it, if you are cutting across the grain at an angle, you want to use the crosscut blade until you hit about 45 degrees. Once you are cutting at an angle greater than 45 degrees, it becomes easier to use the rip cutting side. So the wedges have been cut out. This is not the end for the wedges. I'm not going to junk them. I mean, I wouldn't junk them anyway because they're nice chunky offcuts of wood. In this case, what I'm going to do is use them to bulk up the body. This is the thickest plank of wood that I could get at my local wood shop, and it's only about 32mm thick. That's not thick enough for the Star Destroyer design that I have in mind. I need the base to be 5cm thick, although they'll taper down to about 25mm at the end. I'm going to need to build up the rear section of it, and I'm going to do that by taking the wedge offcuts and rip cutting them. Once that's done, I will plane them nice and flat and then glue them sort of book matched like this, and taper that whole thing down into the Star Destroyer arrowhead shape. Now let's get on to ripping the bulk in half. This looks really awkward, but turns out it's actually the easiest way of doing this cleanly, so and the one, and the two. Next job, planing the rough side flat. As you might be able to tell, the surface finish from my resaw is pretty damn rough. Let's be perfectly honest, my hand plane is cheap and nasty. Even with the blade scary sharp and set with a nice camber for a scrub cut, I would have a very hard time going through all this by hand. So I'm going to use a router sled instead. Well, I never said this was a hand tool build. And hey, I did make that deal with the demon Shipoko. He gets my soul, and eventually I get a CNC machine. Using masking tape and super glue, I am going to mount 2 offcuts and 2 runners directly to my kitchen bench. Then I will just pass it over with the router sled. Right then, let's make some sawdust. I'm going to do the rest of the routing off camera. The offcuts are now ripped more or less down to size. They're not perfectly level or perfectly flat. There's a little bit of a twist in them still, but again, they're just there to bulk things up and then they're going to get trimmed down, so it's not a massive deal. Okay, so the next step is going to be to glue them onto the monolith here. I don't actually have enough clamps to do all 4, I mean, I guess they're veneers? All 4 veneers in one go, so I'm going to have to do them one side at a time like this, give them a couple of hours of clamping, and then come back and do the other side. That was a bit of a fail. My favourite thing about Type 1 2, although this actually applies to pretty much all PVA glues, if you screw up the joint, apply a bit of warm water while it's still wet, the glue will break down. I mean, you can do it with heat after the glue has set. My Type Bond is really handy for loofahs because the glue joints are reversible with a bit of heat. And yes, God knows this is going to make a mess, and the water might end up warping the wood a little bit more, which is not what I need. But honestly, that's still a better outcome than a wonky glue joint. So yeah, I'm going to let this dry probably overnight, and then come back to it in the morning and clamp things up properly. I've given this about 24 hours to dry. There's no significant warping that I can detect, so I think we're good. As you can tell, I've drilled some dowel pins in non-critical areas, and I've drilled some holes in the veneers so that they locate on the pins. I've also gone into town and bought a load more clamps, so I should be able to get this all done in one go. So it looks like everything is glued up nicely. Right, I'm just going to clean this up off camera, and I'll be right back. It's time to start carving out the Star Destroyer from the rough body blank. This is actually kind of analogous to carving an archtop, although the shape is obviously entirely different. So the first thing I'm going to do is carve in something that's analogous to the break angle, but whereas usually the break angle is there to set the angle of the neck in relation to the bridge, I'm going to be carving in a break angle for the entirety of the body, from the base to the nose. When I've got that flat surface carved in, I will route in all the various cavities that need to go on the top. Once those are established, I will carve in the dagger facets by bringing the sides down. I'm struggling a bit with this in that everything makes perfect sense in my brain, but trying to vocalize it and tell you exactly how I'm doing this, that's proving to be the real challenge of this build. Very slowly getting there. It doesn't help that the grain is twisting and turning in really weird and annoying ways. Don't you just hate it when you find that your flat has been infested by urban beavers? This is definitely taking a little bit longer than I thought it would, but I'm getting close to it. I'm looking for a slope of about 1.3 degrees. I don't know how well you'll be able to make this out on camera, but my dial indicator seems to agree that it's close. Still not quite there though, but you know, slowly getting there. Yeah, I'm mostly flat. I might have carved a little bit too much out at the end, but that's mostly okay. Pretty much all this section here is waste that's going to get carved off. The very tip being ever so slightly off by a couple of degrees. It's within acceptable tolerance anyway. So I've got everything planed down now. I thought this would take a little bit longer than it actually did, and I haven't actually gotten around to printing all my routing templates. Currently I've got the bridge template and this multi-part neck template. I've got 2 humbucker templates printing. There's not much I can do right now other than take a break. So I think I've now got enough templates to get started. Like everyone else in this contest, the next step is going to be to break out my fine collection of dull Forstner bits and hog out a decent chunk of material before breaking out my router. Oh, and before anyone asks, despite this being a multi-scale build, the humbuckers aren't going to be at an angle. I just think the humbuckers are going to look slightly weird if they're at askew on a not flat surface. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Because the wings get in the way of the drill press pillar, I can't hog out the bridge humbucker cavity, so for now I will leave it as is. My first template is masking tape and super glued to the body, and I put the Floyd Rose rear cavity template around it to help stabilise the base. So I guess all that's left to say is, at my signal, unleash ein hell. That shape unmistakably tells you this is a guitar. Bridge next, I think. For the bridge template, I'm going to do something slightly different than my normal procedure, which is just slathering the area in masking tape and super gluing the back of the template. One, I'd waste a lot of masking tape getting everything lined up. Two, this is the bridge template. It will affect the location of the bridge, which will in turn affect the location of the point of intonation, so I need to do this as carefully as possible. 3, there's nothing wrong with me. 4, there's nothing wrong with me. That was a drowning pool reference. I'm getting old. Here's how I'm going to do things. My template has got the 2 holes for the bridge posts printed into it. So I'm going to line this up very carefully on the body and drill the bridge posts out. Then I'm going to put a 10mm dowel into the holes to line everything up. Template attached with the dowels. The PLA is flexing a little bit at the back, so I've applied masking tape and I'm going to try and sneak some super glue in there. Pro tip, if you need super glue to harden in a hurry and you don't have a bottle of activator on hand because that stuff is just stupidly expensive, you can use an old modeller's trick using either baking soda or baking powder. Just apply it onto a brush and dust your super glue. That will set the super glue really fast, and then when it's done, brush it off. I'm going to route the tremolo cavity. For that I have a 3D printed insert that fits carefully into the 3D print. This template has done its job. Slight change of plan. I just hacked off the end bits and have turned this into a depth stop for routing the rear section. Last one. I think that's done the trick. A quick test fit has revealed one slight problem. This is very, very snug and there is not much space for the tremolo to move. While I'm waiting for a new template to print, I am going to route out the bridge humbucker. Off camera, I broke out my old drill and dogged out most of the bridge, the waste from the bridge humbucker. That might have been a mistake. Like the dwarves of Moria before me, I think I might have gone just a little bit too deep. Also, there's a balrog down there. I think that might end up affecting my tone. Right, so that slight slip has given me a slightly elongated ear. I think this is going to be fine. I'm going to make some custom pickup rings anyway, so I can hide this as well as I want. It's going to be fine. Off camera, I have widened the bridge cavity a little bit, just giving it an extra millimetre on the side and an extra 2mm in depth. So that's the bridge cavity done. So the next thing to do is the neck pocket. Before we get started on the neck pocket, I figured I'd talk a little bit about what exactly it is that I'm planning on doing here. A feature I have on all my guitars is an all-access neck joint. Square heels are just ergonomically terrible. There's always been this lingering doubt at the back of my head of, this is a step in the right direction, but could we take it further? It turns out I wasn't the first person to wonder that. Back in the late 80s and the heyday of shreddy metal-y guitars, Stephen Davies, a luthier from Seattle, created the Stevens Extended Cutaway, which, for those of you who haven't seen them, because they are pretty rare, it's an alternative system for attaching a bolt-on neck to a body. Instead of having the bolts in line with the neck, the bolts are on the side of the neck. So there's this shark fin swoop-shaped extension jutting out of the side of the neck, and that extension bolts into a recess carved into the upper horn. And that's something I've always really wanted to try my hand at making. Don't know what it is about it, it gels with the way I think about building guitars. In the wild, the Stevens Extended Cutaway sort of died out in the mid-90s. Washburn had it as a feature on some of their signature models, but really the arrival of grunge in the 90s and the slow death of 80s shreddy metal kind of put pay to the Stevens Extended Cutaway. That, and it was only really a feature on the high-end Washburns, so regular guitarists never really got to experience it and see what it was like. By all accounts I've found of people on the internet who have them and have played them, they are apparently incredibly comfortable to play, especially if you are on the end of the scale. I'm going to give an extended cutaway a try. Here's the thing. Normally the extended cutaways bolt onto the upper horn. I ain't got one. I have recessed the entirety of the neck well into where the body is, and I'm going to install it there. So this is going to be the shelf the bolts will go through, and this is waste. So I'm going to route out a neck pocket round about here. Then I am going to hack all this away. Let's get the pocket routed. Got the neck pocket's routing jig glued on, and 2 more failed predecessors of the jig glued onto the side to stabilise the broad base of my router. I'm going to take this down to about 16mm in a couple of passes. I think that's it. Give inclined nature of the wood, it's kind of hard to get a solid measurement, but I'm pretty sure that I am around 16.3, 16.5. So I think I might have gone just a hair too deep, but not enough for it to be a major problem. If I'd have gone, say, 18, yeah, I would be panicking right now. 16.5, I can live with that. No, you can't see it on camera. There is a mountain of sawdust all around me. This is not a kitchen anymore. This is a sawdust wasteland. My lungs have more sawdust in them than oxygen. I am now more sawdust than man. I've re-established the pocket line along the inside of the pocket. So now I'm going to break out my saw and hack all that out. Looks like the battery's nearly dead, so I'm going to go put my camera into recharge and saw out the rest of this on camera. You'll have to use your vivid imaginations to fill in how exactly I'm doing that. I hacked a very rough semicircle in there, and now I'm going to make that more of an actual semicircle. I'm going to start up with my coarse wood rasp. I've got it about as close as I can. The plan is to get it close to the line with a drum sander. One problem with that thought, I don't own a drum sander. I would love to own a drum sander. I particularly enjoy that Triton spindle and belt sander thing that somehow everyone in the GGBO appears to have. Was that like a group, I think, that I missed out on? But I've got something better. I have my imagination. So I have a jig for my drill press. This is just a plank with a bearing salvaged from a fidget spinner and a sanding drum made up of a 3D printed cylinder onto which is masking tape and superglued some 80 grit. The crazy thing is this works. As my dad used to say, there is no problem in this life that can't be solved with copyright infringement. One completely legit, completely official GGBO grade drum sander. Ta-da! Yeah, I haven't got anything else to say about that. That turned out really nice. With the neck pocket and cutaway done, that's it for this side. Off camera, I did very quickly drill the holes all the way through on the tremolo block. So what's next? Well, second verse, same as the first, really. I've got to plane in the break angle on this side of the guitar. Oh, and for anyone who's wondering, no, I haven't forgotten the electronics cavity. I'm saving that as the very last thing to do after I shape the flanks down. The hell? Oh, I see what's happened. Must have bumped it. That's that done. My drill press's pillar is in the way, so I'm going to do the hogging out by hand. I did one quick pass and things were a little wonky, so I glued up all the other templates I'm not using anymore as outriggers. Hopefully that should keep this nice and stable. Quick dry fit. I think that works. One thing of note, I haven't made a huge mistake here and drilled the holes in the wrong place. I'm going to be using different needle bearing blocks in the final product because, well, yeah, as you might see, the hole that I drilled there would have been way too close to the actual routed cavity and it might have caused the grain to snap or interfered with it, so I moved them out a little bit from where they are. I just hadn't got around to making the new needle blocks. With all that done, the next step is to start planing the flanks down. Okay, slight unexpected snafu. I should have seen it coming that this short section of grain would pop right off. I think the solution is going to be to carve this whole section out. Good as new, back to the planing. Minus snafu there aside, this has turned out pretty much exactly as I thought it would. Apart from one small area there which is going to get chopped off anyway, you can't see the transition line, it's just the top surface has blended in perfectly smoothly with the base. There was one slight problem. Remember that great big knothole from the start of the video? I planed for it. It looks awkward, but it's not actually a problem. I know something you don't know. There is going to be something here, a feature that I haven't discussed because it's super secret until the next video. I'm just going to flip this over and work on the reverse. This is going to be a slightly shallower carve than the front, a bit less aggressive because I need more material for the bolts for the neck pocket. This side is annoyingly way more prone to tear out than the other side. The standard rule of pick a direction and you've got a 50-50 chance of planing with the grain does not seem to apply here. I seem to be planing against the grain in every direction possible. I've taken to just getting it close with the plane and then breaking out a quick and dirty sanding stick. There's a couple of low spots and a little bit of tear out that I'm going to have to fix with spot putty. I think that's about as good as it's going to get. I'm going to quickly clean up this small beaver dam and then flip the guitar over and start working again on the other side. I made a bit of a dump. My initial plan when I was playing this was to plane one flank in, flip it over and plane the opposite flank in. That way I would still have one side that's nice and solid and still relatively flat that I can clamp down to my bench and work against. Only now I've just realised that if I flip this over to work on this side, I kind of have to put the clamps on the side that I'm working on. That's not going to work. It seems obvious in hindsight. I need to think about how I'm going to clamp this. This is awkward, and it's going to get even more awkward going forwards. Back to it, I suppose. So after a bloody long struggle, 3 down, 1 more to go. Last one. Looks like I've gotten lucky, and the last flank is one that has a grain direction. The top veneer has a grain direction that goes this way, but the base wood has a grain direction that goes this way. And attempting to plane across the grain caused a nice chip to tear out. So close I can almost touch it. Okay, so the last couple of operations that need to be done. I need to cut off the rear wedges. I need to route out the main electronics cavity, write out something secret here, and I also need to cut out the wedge things that are on the side. Let's get all that laid out again. Main electronics cavity, surprise cavity. I've extended the cutouts. I wanted to include that little chip out as part of them. You know, the cavities first. Camera ran out of juice again, got it to charge in time before it corrupted the SD card, but I was kind of in the zone, so I carried on. All those bits I had relief cuts on, I hacked them out with my chisel and my rasp, and now I'm bringing it close to dimension, which is proving a little bit harder than I thought it would because of, you know, the lack of a stable work surface. I hate to admit it, but the best tool for the job has been my sanding stick. I'm clamping the body down to my bench using my gut, alternating between giving it sanding passes and using a Stanley knife blade as a bit of a card scraper. So far it's not going too badly. That's not too bad. Oh, I just want to point out that while this works, repeatedly stabbing yourself in the gut is not a walk in the park. Time to play every luthier's favourite game of will I blow through the hole or will I actually get it right? Yeah, my the body of my jaw catching on the horn. Quick rethink. Quick rethink, and I've come to realise that actually drilling a hole there would not have really done much to help me. What I'm going to do is drill one hole through this cavity to the side and another one also to the side, so each one will have independent holes for wiring. Just barely. By sheer coincidence, I've managed to get the grounding wire hole intersect perfectly with the hole for the bridge humbucker. I'm going to pretend that that was entirely intentional and what I really plan to do all the time. Okay, I might have to trim the pickup wires a little bit, but overall I'd say that's a success. For those of you who haven't seen my humbucker side video series, I've ended up having to abandon the humbuckers I made last video, for now at least. They don't work as well as I want them to. These are the new humbuckers that will be going in the body. They are a matched pair of Warman destroyers, because, you know, Star Destroyer. I will return to these in the finishing video. I think that really is a good a point as any to call this video a day. For everyone who made it so far, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.